What's going on, everybody? In this video I'm going to be tying one of my favorite nymphs to fish. This is going to be the hotspot hare's ear, and it's super similar to the blowtorch, which I tied in my last video, but with a few tweaks makes it look a little bit more natural. So yeah, let's get started. The materials are listed below, but just for reference, this is a size 14 jig style hook and a 3.5 millimeter gold bead head, but you can use gunmetal, you can use silver, you know, whatever you really want. So to get started here, I'm gonna go ahead and use some orange thread. We're gonna get some thread on the hook. Go ahead and snip off your extra, and we're just gonna bring that all the way back just before the bend in the hook, so right about there is good. Alright, bring it back to right behind the bead head. The first thing that we're going to tie in is a little bit of gold wire for our rib, so you can go ahead and tie that in right behind the bead head. And we're also going to grab a little bit of Glo Brite number 7 orange floss. It doesn't have to be number 7, but this is just the stuff I bought, so get yourself a little piece of that. On size 14 and bigger, I'll double it over. On smaller than that, I'll just use a single strand, but it doesn't really matter. It just depends on how flashy you want your hot spot. So after you double it over there, we're gonna go ahead and lay it on top, just like this, and tie that right in behind the bead head. So once you do that, bring your thread back a little bit, and we're gonna cut off the tag end right there. Pulling all of our materials back, we're going to bring our thread to the back of the hook. Right about there. And we're going to use our dubbing now. So you can use hare's ear. I'm using some of this squirrel dubbing in this color, this tan color. I know you can't really see it that good, but you know, just a lighter color I think works great. We're going to grab a little clump of that, and we kind of want this thing to look a little fluffy, so I'm going to grab a clump, a reasonably big clump, and kind of create our little tapered dubbing noodle so we can get the body going here. So once you have that ready, you're just going to start your wraps. So I always like to use less and then add more later on. It's a lot harder to take this stuff off than it is to add it on, so a little bit at a time is not necessarily a bad thing. I'm going to add a little bit more there. Go ahead and keep bringing it forward, and I'm going to add actually a pretty big clump, I think, to the end of this, just so it's got a nice little fat taper there. Give it a little bit more of a body here. So right about there is about all I'll do. At this point, you know, I'm going to use the rotary feature on my vise. You don't need a rotary vise; it's totally fine. We're going to go ahead and whip finish, just so I could use this without my thread unwrapping. And all we're going to do is grab our wire and go ahead and start your wire wraps. So nice even wire wraps. It's going to be our rib. It's going to keep the body nice and durable, just like that. Once you get to the end, tie it off. And we are going to just go ahead and spin that off. So just like that, we've got our body ready to go. At this point, I'm going to snip in the hot spot just so I can get this out of the way. So to do that, I'm just going to pull this back, and then maybe right about there, cut it off, and there's your hot spot, just like that. Some guys will just add a little more dubbing and then a collar and whip finish right away. There's nothing wrong with that. I like to take a little bit of CDC. This is wood duck color, but like any brown natural sort of color will work for this. And I'm actually going to add some CDC legs. So I've got a pretty good CDC feather here. To tie this in, I'm just going to brush back some of these fibers, maybe about that much, and I'm just going to snip this off. So right about there, I'm going to snip that off, pull back your fibers, and tie this right in behind the bead head. So give that a couple wraps. You can see I've got this sort of tag end here. I'm just gonna cut that right off. We're all good there. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna grab our CDC feather. Some people use hackle pliers. I don't think I need them, but you might not be able to see this super well. But I'm gonna grab the fibers and give it a wrap. So every time you wrap, you wanna pull back these fibers. So I'm gonna give it a healthy amount of wraps here. So maybe one more. And then take your thread and just go ahead and finish that right off. So all we're gonna do now, pull this back, give it a couple wraps in front. That'll really cinch it in. And this extra end of the CDC, we can cut that right off. That's all good. You can see this thing is looking pretty crazy right now. What I'll do at this point is I'll just take my scissors at a straight angle and just snip it a little bit like this. So you can see these fibers are, some of them are wicked long, some of them are not. Kind of trim it up somewhat, but you know, at the same time, you kind of want it to look a little crazy. So we're gonna pull this back again and just kind of lay those fibers down just like that. So this is kind of what the look that we've got going on. Now at this point, you're totally fine to end. I'm gonna add in a little teeny tiny dubbing noodle here in front of the CDC, just to give it a little more bulk. Sometimes the crazier these things are, the better they fish. I don't know why it works like that, but it does. So pull these fibers back, add your dubbing, right like that. And now all we're gonna do is we're gonna build a hot spot, okay? So we're just gonna build our thread wraps up right behind the bead, just like this. You can see that hot spot is just about done. And this is kind of what we're looking at right now. So at this point, I mean, the fly is pretty much done. All we've got to do is whip finish and use a little bit of head cement, and this thing is ready to go. I fish these all year round. Summertime is great. You know, they imitate a million different things, and it's kind of an attractor pattern. So, you know, in terms of a double nymph rig, it's heavy because this bead head is tungsten. So, you know, it gets down in the water, it finds fish, it looks super buggy, and overall it's a really good fly. It's super easy to tie. It's kind of like a modern twist on an old school hare's ear. But yeah, this is kind of what it looks like in the end. You can trim these shorter if you want them shorter. You can leave them that long. It doesn't really change, you know, how the fly fishes. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Like I said, the materials are listed below. If you like the video, give it a like. I would appreciate that. But other than that, tie some of these up, get on the stream, and catch some trout.